Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to NXT with Najee. This is episode 15, a part of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast, aka The Whip Show. And guess what? I got a special guest. Finally, I know y'all got sick of just seeing me and hearing me. So I reached out to somebody that I actually met during WrestleMania weekend at Stand and Deliver. We got Wrestling with Honey. Miss Honey herself is here with us. What's going on? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. It's just been a whirlwind since that Philly weekend, man. It's just been pretty crazy, and it's just had the momentum hasn't stopped at all. So it's gonna be a good year. I'm looking forward to it, but I'm also happy to be here as well.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are still recovering. I was just watching Sean Whipple talk about it the other day. Like him and a lot of other people from even Busted Open Radio are still tired, still recovering, trying to feel like a person again. So, but
hmm
yeah, tell some people about yourself. Tell people who you are, what you do, like why were you there at Stand and Deliver? Who are you?
I was there for the festivities. I was there doing my first actual run through with some media work. I work with as a co-host with Women's Wrestling Talk. You guys can follow them on all streaming platforms. I'm also a co-analyst frequently for Sports Mark analyst as well, and you can find them on Instagram and YouTube as well. My personal brand, Wrestling with Honey, you can find me pretty much on TikTok, and Instagram and Facebook, Wrestling W Honey as well. And I do a bunch of other things too. I, do some predictions before the shows on Mondays and Fridays. And, I got that going on and it's going really well. So, but I had my first run through with media work on WrestleMania weekend, and it was really exciting. It was really exciting to be there. Like, dream come true for sure. And I can't wait to do more.
Yeah, man. I'm also very new to this media thing too. So I'm right there with you. Being at Mania was
Mm-hmm.
something that I'll never ever forget the rest of my life. But yeah,
Oh,
please,
yeah.
please, please, everybody listen. Make sure you guys check out her channels. Excuse my voice. Still, like I said, recovering. But make
Right.
sure you guys check out our channels. Make sure you guys check out the predictions. The predictions are really good. I watch them every week, and be honest with you. But so we're at Spring Breakin for NXT. This is night one. I was in the crowd, front row, front and center. I was having a blast. And match one, appropriately, is for the women's NXT title. We got Roxanne Perez versus Lyra versus Tatum Paxley. Now, the crowd this whole entire match was firmly, firmly, firmly behind Paxley. Like you could tell, 1,000%. Maybe 5% was still there for Lyra because they enjoyed her run. But man, the energy was just there for Paxley. And this match lived up to everything I thought it was going to be. But surprise to a lot of people, Roxanne ended up retaining. And it was wild to see that happen. But that brings up my questions for you, Miss Honey. What do you think this means for Roxanne going forward? Because I do think she's eligible for the draft. I think all NXT superstars are eligible for the draft. So what do you think this might be for Roxanne having the title going into this draft?
I think it raises a lot of questions as to what can happen for her next. It definitely, I think personally, she was in the right to retain. I think she has still more to do in NXT. Um, I know a lot of people are behind her and wanting to push her to the main roster, but sometimes with these kinds of processes, you don't want to rush it. So I kind of was a little bit on the fence about it at first. Now I'm trying to stay a little objective here because I did interview Lyra Valkyria that weekend for before Takeover, the night before, and literally the morning of Stand and Deliver. And I did say that we were looking forward to seeing her retain, but since that didn't happen, we now have Roxy, who's been on top. And if you ask me, she's been very convincing to me for the last few weeks, especially with her promos and vignettes that she's done backstage. She's really good. She did a really good job of convincing me to get behind her because at first I really wasn't really high on Roxanne Perez, not initially. But when she started coming out with this bad girl attitude, this bad girl persona, this I don't care about what my heroes think because they didn't do anything for me. I'm kind of on board with it, and I really love the direction that she's going in. As far as what happens with the draft, I'm not sure. Being that she did show up to the main roster on Raw last week and had a match too as NXT champion, which is
Yeah,
something
and
that's
one.
very rarely seen, and she won.
Yeah.
Um, so it could be a bit of foreshadowing that maybe we will see her in the future. in the main roster, but maybe not quite yet because I think a lot of people still want that Roxanne and Cora Jade match when Cora
Yeah.
returns.
And
So
I
I
and I
think
also
no, I'm sorry. I was going to say I think so. I think they should definitely keep the title on her, and I think she should remain untouched for the draft and stay on NXT.
yeah, and I also think that they don't need to do a repeat of what they did last year with the women's title, which is have somebody win it and then very shortly afterwards get drafted, and now that's just wide open. I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
especially with the introduction of the North American Women's Championship, that we don't need two tournaments for two vacant titles. You know what I mean? So I hope she stays. I hope that she's like, say, if NXT did get a pick, that NXT picks Roxanne to stay or something like that. Like that would be
Right.
really, really. But we are going to move on to match number 2, which was the family versus the no quarter catch crew. Now, this match was good. It gave the catch crew a chance to really show how good they can work with a lot of the mainstream teams that we have on NXT. Of course, they took the L to the family. The family ends up winning the match. But I do have my question for you about this one, kind of bouncing off of that. It has more to do with Tony. Now I know that at Stand and Deliver, you were a big Ilya fan. You were all about the Dragunov. You were there. Yes.
All
Doing the
day.
dance, all of it. So, what do you think about Tony? How do you feel about Tony possibly being a contender for an NXT championship run in the future? I'm not without me saying too much about what's happened later on in the show.
Yeah. It's so crazy. I feel like it's like hit or miss with Tony. For some reason, there's just been hit or miss. You know, he's proclaimed himself as the Don, and he's running things. And with the whole beef with Ilya and everything like that, and he was kind of like establishing his control in the NXT and how deep his pockets go, apparently, because that's that Italian thing. But you could pull all of that off, but you couldn't pull off the win against Ilya in the grandest stage for you guys, which is Stand and Deliver, and it was during
Mhm.
WrestleMania weekend. So, in a way, I feel like it was safe to have the family win this match only because you want to still kind of keep D'Angelo looking strong a
Yeah.
little bit, but he still got beat by Dragunov. So I think we're going to be going into a new era. I mean, we're already in a new era, but I think in this new era, this is where Tony D'Angelo is going to have a little bit of a chip on his shoulder for sure. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of his control being enforced going forward in the future, especially with the title change that happened recently. I feel like that would be a good opportunity for Tony D to probably just reclaim his time, as the kids like to say. And
Yeah.
shout outs to New Quarter Catch Crew because they're actually very good. I actually thought they were going to win for a second, but I think it was the right call to have the family win for sure.
Yeah. And I believe that Tony now gets a shot at the Heritage Cup, which
Yes,
him winning that and the family having the Heritage Cup, I think would be awesome for their story to continue and for them to, I don't want to use the word relevant, but you know what I mean? Like stay relevant with the fan base and everything like
right.
that.
Is that it? But I will pose this question to you. But do you think it would create sort of like a consolation prize ish thing to Tony, being
Mm,
that he didn't get the big one?
maybe I think it'd be weird to throw him in the title picture with Oba because Oba's kind of got to start like his own thing going on too. So that's like a third title for that brand in general. And I think with the family being a faction, that thing seems to follow the cup seems to follow around factions. So it was
Yeah,
with Metaphor for a very long time. Now it's with, the Catch Crew. Now it's going to move on to the family, maybe. Like I could easily see possibly AOP trying to go after it, or the OC going after it now that they're on NXT. Well, like I said, it all depends on what happens in the draft. But with the way it's looking now, that almost seems like a second set of tag titles for people.
yeah, that is true.
But we're gonna move on to match number 3, which was Fallon Henley versus Jada Parker. This is another one of those matches that stemmed off of a backstage segment. I don't really talk about promos too much on the show. You guys know that. But it was an awesome win for Miss Parker. Good to see her getting another win. But it raises the question for Fallon Henley. Are they going to push her? Will she be one of the people to get released? Will she get drafted? Is she going to join another faction? She's just kind of floating out there in NXT limbo. So we'll see what happens with her over the next couple of weeks. And we're going to move on due to some time situations here to match number 4, which was interesting to me. This was the beach brawl between Sol Ruka and Blair Davenport. This one I say was interesting to me because I think Sol and Blair both deserved a better match. The back half of it was fantastic. Them doing the little boogie board beatdown was silly. It was very, very silly. That first fake surfboard spot was rough because you could tell it was not a real surfboard. But
Yeah.
then when Sol actually hit her with a real surfboard, you're like, ah.
Hmm.
But great energy throughout it. It was good to see Sol looking fantastic, even with the knee brace on and the injury still happening. My question for you, Ms. Honey, is how do you think that having Sol back in that locker room feels for both pictures of the women's, story now with the new championship coming and the women's championship being there? Like, how do you think she fits into that?
Yeah, I think she fits in very well because given the fact that she got injured so soon when she arrived, it didn't really give us time to actually see what she can do. And now that we have begun to start seeing like different colors to her ring work. And I think honestly, the match, I feel you on what you're saying about the match. It was a little too gimmicky for me. I get it, but the match itself, as far as what the work the ladies put
Oh, it
in,
was awesome.
that was a match. That was a match I did
Yeah.
not know I needed. I did
Hmm.
not know I needed that. I knew Blair was a beast, and I knew Sol Ruka was a beast, but the way they executed it and the way they finished it was
Yeah.
absolutely amazing, and it
Oh,
definitely kept people on their toes. It definitely seemed like it resonated very well with the crowd. And I
yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if we see these two go at it again. I would love another one of these without the gimmicky
Yeah,
part of it. Like,
foreshadowing battlegrounds, hopefully in Vegas. That would be fantastic. And I agree with you. They brought us back into that match because us and the crowd, we were into it because we both enjoy the wrestlers, but we were very confused at points in times. But like the back half of that match, definitely all the credit goes to Blair and Soul for working their asses off to make that match as amazing as it ended up being once we got to those final sets with the picnic table and the
it
picnic
ended up
bench.
being a
And
banger. Like, it actually ended
yeah,
up
it was
being
awesome.
good for it being the gimmicky match, and they saved it. Honestly, if you ask me,
Uh-huh.
they saved it. So great
Yes.
job to both women.
Yes,
But I want
yes.
more.
Yeah, please, 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 please. But I think Soul's got a good chance at that NXT North American title. If not, the championship soon. I wouldn't be
Hmm.
surprised if that happens sooner or later. But we're gonna move on to this next match. We got Baron Corbin versus Lexis King. This almost felt like a send-off match for my boy Baron. We had a commercial break right after he came out, talked to the crowd. He was very interactive with us. We kept saying, "We don't want you to leave. Where do you think you're gonna go?" He was like, "I want to stay here. You guys are my people." Like he says where his favorite interactions that he has, regardless of where he goes. He even like cracked a couple jokes about Kansas City, and I talked to him about the Lions and a bunch of other teams and stuff like that.
Love
It
it.
was great interaction, great guy. But Lexus King, big mouth, crazy dude. I like his gimmick personally. I give him a lot of crap from the crowd saying that Booker T is our real king and not him, and he hates me for it. But
Love
just so
it.
you know, it's all love, buddy. It's all love. But I ask every single guest that I've had on this show, I ask them the same exact question. What are your thoughts on Mr. Lexus King? How are you feeling about Lexus King?
Believe it or not, I absolutely love Lexus King. I love that they strayed him away from that Brian Pillman stuff, the Brian Pillman Jr. thing that they had him in AEW doing. Like, I personally love that they put this kind of persona on him. It almost kind of, and I don't know if I'm out of line for saying this. I don't want to piss anybody off, but it almost gives me the back in the day Jericho in WCW, the obnoxious
Oh,
Jericho. Like I know I'm all of that. I know I'm a beast in the ring, and I'm the best, and I'm the pretty boy. Like, I'm, like he just has that kind of flair to him and that cockiness. and he's just completely obnoxious. And I'm always here for those kinds of characters. It just makes more for an interesting story, and he's going to grow tremendously, and he's doing a great job. I think he's one of those superstars in that locker room that understands what his role is there. And Baron Corbin kind of played a similar role when he started there, and now Baron Corbin has become an absolute legend in the eyes of NXT, because that's where he was regaled from as the Lone Wolf. And from Lone Wolf to Wolf Dog, I respect my boy Baron Corbin. I just want him to bring that Lone Wolf thing back and just keep that forever, because that was my favorite Baron Corbin. This definitely was a send-off match, and I definitely think he will be back on the main roster soon.
Yeah, I think they're gonna separate him and Braun, unfortunately. And it's gonna be a moment, and that's how
They
maybe we
have
get,
to.
and that's maybe how we get back to that lone wolf character. Maybe that's exactly how we get there, is the titles.
Yep.
But yeah, so we're gonna move on to the final match, the main event match. I will not lie and act like I wasn't fully invested in that match in the front row. You would have thought it was Cody versus Roman. You would have thought it was The Rock versus Cena for me. It was awesome with my personal relationship as friends with Trick. That was huge. That was amazing. And long story short, we have a new NXT champion in Trick Williams. All the love goes to Ilya. If that's the last match we get out of you, Ilya, before you're gone, man, that was great. Like, how awesome of a match was that?
That match gave the whole night, for some reason. I'm like, it's Tuesday, right? Like, this is just a Tuesday, and WrestleMania is nowhere. We're still recovering from weeks ago, but it's not like WrestleMania is this weekend. It had like a really big fight feel to it. And you had all the alumni there encouraging Trick and making their picks about who's going to win and dragging
Yeah,
up.
the
It was
Creeds,
just,
all sorts of people.
yeah, it was just like, what the heck is going on? But I'm here for it. I would love a little bit more crossover as we go forward in the years with wrestling with all three brands, because I really like that aspect. It just keeps everybody invested. And of course, this was something that everybody has wanted for a while. And for Trick Williams to go from sidekick to champion is an immense journey, especially within a year. That's not even, that's pretty much not heard of around here. For Shawn Michaels to create the dynamic that he did with Trick and Melo's story and their brotherhood, and then turn them into two completely separate individual stars, was absolutely genius. And then you had Ilya Dragunov to just boost up the credibility for the in-ring work all in there, because we know
Oh, he
Ilya is a
does it
beast.
every single
He's an
time.
absolute dog, and it's just like he elevates everybody that he fights. The match was super intense. I was sitting on the edge of my seat by the end of the matches, but like towards the end of the match, because there was all those kickouts happening, and it was over time. It was like 10:05, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on? Would
Yeah, I
somebody
was
please
jumping out of
just
my
get
literal
this?"
seat.
I can't even imagine how you guys were there, but from what I saw, when as soon as they counted three for Trick, all I see is the whole crowd, and you see the camera is
Shaking,
shaking, like
shaking.
literally shaking. It was earthquake in there. I was like, oh my god. I was like, finally we got the result. We got some result, but it was the right result, and the whoop that Trick chants, like
It was
that.
amazing,
That
dude.
was the thing of beauty.
He came out, did his celebration right in front of us. Like I said, I have zero shame. Y'all can clown me all y'all want. I was out there hollering, yelling, jumping, screaming, whoop that Trick. Whoop. I was going
Yep.
crazy for my boy. And then he came out and jumped in the crowd with us. And that was just such an amazing, intimate moment to have with such a good guy. Like, he deserves it. All the stuff that they had
Mm-hmm.
said about him over the last couple of weeks was it's just insane. And it was so sad to hear, but he bounced back. He did nothing but thrive from it. So congratulations to Trick Williams, and congratulations to NXT for your new champion. Now,
Yep.
that is the end of Spring Breakin' Night 1. Now, at the end of the show, when I have guests, I like to ask them 2 questions. Since we got to see an amazing match with Carmelo and Trick in person, which was an amazing rivalry. My question for you is, what is your favorite rivalry of all time? Who are the two people who really went at it? and you were locked in from the day it started and almost shed a
Ooh.
tear the day it ended?
Oh, and we're talking about all-time NXT.
Maybe not even NXT, it could be WWE, it could be whatever,
Oh,
whatever you
oh my
like your
God.
favorite rivalry of all time.
Oh, Jesus, that's just way too hard. That's just if you're talking about all brands, that's way too hard. But like I
We'll
could
just say, yeah,
say,
like SmackDown Raw. We'll do that.
yeah, yeah, I could say Shawn and Taker was a thing of beauty, and then also incorporated with Triple H, with the
Yeah.
Triple H dynamic, the whole end of the era kind of thing. Like that is just something that you cannot replace. That's definitely one. Anything that had to do with Sasha and Bailey was absolutely disgusting in the best of ways in the ring, especially in NXT. Uh, there's so much more.
Yeah.
Anybody against Roman, because because Roman had a hell of a run that he did,
Yeah, it's
and
3 years of cinema.
3 years of movie theatrics and Godfather acting from this
Yeah.
man. Like
I gotta
he's the
say,
Marlon Brando for
I
sure.
gotta say, for me, it was The Rock versus Hogan because that was around the time where I
Mm,
first really, really started like being obsessed with wrestling. So that being the
yeah.
first WrestleMania I ever watched, and everything from the ambulance and them running the truck into the ambulance, hitting him over the head with a hammer, and even just
Hmm.
that moment of them finally in the ring together and
Yeah.
them raising each
I
other's hand was perfect to me.
yeah, that was one of those. And it's funny because I saw a post on social where it was like 5 different instances where the crowd went absolutely crazy before the match even started, and Rock and Hogan was one of them. I'll never
Yeah.
forget it. Also, I will say, low key, Shawn Michaels versus Y2J back then. I
Hmm.
forget what pay per view it was, but there was an
WrestleMania
instant.
19. WrestleMania
Oh, okay,
19. I remember that one.
I knew it had to be a
Yeah.
WrestleMania, but it was like you couldn't even tell who the people were cheering for because
Yeah.
Y2J and HBK almost sound the same.
Hmm.
So it was like Y2K, HBJ. Like people were completely confused, you know. But
Yep.
anything that had Sean in it, masterpiece, especially for me. Like Sean is one of my number ones for sure.
Me as well. Me too. And I think that's why I love NXT so much. But all right, last question. Give me your number one draft pick prediction for Raw and SmackDown.
Ooh, number one draft pick
So
for
you know the
SmackDown.
rules.
Okay,
All the champions are safe
right.
except for the
All
women's tag
champions safe.
champions.
Yeah, which is kind of weird to me, but hey,
Yeah.
whatever, we're here. Um, Let me see. I would want to draft. Ooh, I mean, main event Jey Uso would be a great first draft pick anywhere, but he is on Monday. I wouldn't mind just to stir the pot a little bit to draft him number one on SmackDown, just to
Okay.
for ish and giggles. I like to say. I think Jey Uso is somebody who's definitely going to hold on to some really really good gold later on in the year. He already has touched gold. As far as individual gold, I think that could possibly happen. Or so yeah, so Jey Uso probably for SmackDown and a pick for Raw. Well, then again, that doesn't make sense because he's already on Raw. But I don't know. Maybe Gunther would also be a good pick for SmackDown for
Oh, there
first
you go.
draft. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of hot players in there, and it's a big
All right,
roster to
so
fill.
we'll say your official pick for SmackDown. We'll say Gunther. I like that one. That one. So for
Yeah,
Raw, who do you think you'd snag if you were in the GM shoes?
if I was in the GM shoes for the first pick of Raw, I would have to go with. Hmm. And and it could be male or female too. That's the
Yep,
crazy
sure
part.
could.
I would choose Tiffy Time.
Okay. All right,
Tiffy
you heard
Time
it here
is a
first.
I would put Tiffy Time. Take her off SmackDown, put her on Raw. Put her on the 3 hour show because a lot
Okay,
of people want to see more of her. And shout
for
out to
sure.
Tiffy Time because
All
she was
right.
one of my first interviews too. She was
I
good.
think my first pick for Raw, I think I'd take Bianca. And then
Mm.
for SmackDown, I would want to keep Randy Orton. That's what I think I'd
Oh
do.
yeah, Yeah, you don't want to let
But
legend go.
yeah, exactly. But that's about all the time we got today, my friends. Thank you guys so much for listening. This has been episode 15 of NXT with Najee. One more time, honey, please drop those links. Let them know where to find your stuff at.
You could find me at anything wrestling with honey on TikTok and Instagram, but on Facebook it's spelled wrestling W honey. So just keep that in mind. You can find me Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays with the Women's Wrestling Talk podcast. We do a live show 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time, depending on where you're at, where we cover all things wrestling, all promotions and such things like that. And we have a really good time on that show. Also, shout outs to my people at Sports Mark Analyst. From time to time during right before pay-per-views, we do predictions for the results of the pay-per-views or the PLEs that are coming up. So Backlash will be coming up next. And YouTube Wrestling with Honey podcast. It's nothing on there right now, but it's in development and it's going to be up and running really soon. And check out my Honey Pot predictions on all my socials.
Heck yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show again. One more time. This is NXT with Najee. That is Wrestling with Honey. This is a part of the Wrestling Heroes and Insiders podcast. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, hit us with questions, whatever you guys want to say. Even just maybe have a nice day, something crazy like that. We appreciate everything. Thank y'all again. It's been real. Peace.